Hi, everyone, and welcome to Coffee with Craig. I hope you've caught me live today. I tend to go live at all sorts of times of day. So, anyway, we're going to be doing another live show about all things paranormal. This is what I cover, but particularly the spiritual side of life, and how spiritually we can address some of the things that are happening in the world. And I want to talk about what I feel is going to be happening in the world, particularly with what's happening with the movement towards the right in politics. Anyway, welcome to Coffee with Craig. Well, hi again, and welcome to the show. I can see you all piling in the live chat now, and I hope you've caught me. Some of you are going to be coming on after I've gone live, of course. So, sorry, I can't really schedule these. I have to do when I feel inspired, really, and I feel inspired today to talk about some of the things that are happening in the world. I try to take a kind of a spiritual take on what's happening in the world. And sometimes I make predictions. I don't know if I make predictions in this show or not. I just want to talk about some of the things that I feel are happening. Because if you followed the channel, you'll see that for quite a few years, I've been talking about a major change in the political landscape of the world. Right back in just before Trump got elected first time round, I predicted Trump would come into power. Everybody thought that was a completely crazy idea, and I said it on the show and put it on the website and things like that. And then the press picked up on it, and I also said about Brexit would happen, things like this. You know the channel, but I've been talking for a long time about a major swing in world politics. I've been saying that people are going to start moving towards the right, and more news outlets nowadays are talking about this. It's becoming a topic of the month and the topic of the year. And I don't think you've seen anything like what's going to happen in 2024, because 2024 is going to be a really quite a revolutionary year when it comes to the political landscape. And we've already seen it happening. I've talked about it happening, going to happen for a long time. And I just want to sort of share a few thoughts with you. So this is all kind of my take on things, and particularly since we've just seen quite a major shift to Trump's position as he jostles towards being able to move towards the final elections in America as we move through 2024. I think it will be November time, isn't it? But today, if you look at the political landscape today, I was thinking about it, we're very much in a position which are very similar to what was happening in the 1930s, really. We've got a position where the world is having to confront quite powerful forces of both fascism and communism in the world. And I'm thinking in particular about the alliance that I talked about years ago that I saw coming between China, between Iran, between Russia and North Korea. And there seems to me that nobody can confront this, or certainly on a military level. Only really Britain, the USA, of course, following Britain following the USA, and possibly France, have the capability to stand up against what's happening in the world out there. And Trump, in very recently, was asked, are we on the brink of World War III? And his opinion is similar to what I suppose I've said. I haven't predicted that we will get a World War III. I don't think it will be quite the case in many ways. But he said it in Iowa that we come to the closest we've ever been, the closest we've ever been. And he said it won't be a regular war that we'll see ahead, not with tanks and the usual sort of things that we're seeing in Ukraine, Ukraine in particular. But he says, that we've got to be fearful of weapons of mass destruction. And he said, I've seen them. I know what they're like. He's obviously been shaken by what the capabilities of America and countries around the world, what there is available to everybody. So we're at a very dangerous time in history, and it reminds me of the 1930s too, because when we had to confront sort of major negative forces in the world, particularly the rise of Nazism in Germany, we had here in the UK, when the UK was the most dominant country in the world pretty much at that time, we had weak leaders. We had Chamberlain and people like that who were trying to appease very heavy political forces, and were weak basically. And we have now in the UK, around the world, particularly in Europe, and I think in America, of course, we have really weak leadership, dangerously weak leadership. You see, we've got career politicians, haven't we, out there? We have here in the UK, we have Rishi Sunak, who is really sort of like a paper cutout. Really, he's trying all the time to appease people. He wants to appease people. He wants people to think that he's a nice guy. Here's Rishi Sunak being all nice and jolly. And we see this going on, and we can see through it, can't we? It's laughable. It's laughable sort of display of people trying to look good for us all, isn't it? They're trying to they're they're trying to sort of project an image. We have things like image management, where you don't want to be seen to say anything wrong. You don't want to be seen to be have made mistakes. You make mistakes, so cover them up. Don't let anyone see that mistake. They only want to see the good side of me. And we can see through it. Ordinary people can see through this. We can see we're real people. All of us are real people. We all make mistakes. I make mistakes. If I make mistakes, I don't go taking my YouTubes down. If I made a mistake, I leave them up there because, like everybody else, I'm fallible. We're all fallible people on all levels, and we're real people. You and me, we're real people, aren't we? We're just ordinary people. We say stupid things sometimes. We put our foot in it sometimes. A lot of the things we say are wrong. All of us, every person, real people are like that. So what do we have to do? With the politicians want to massage all this and want to make them look as if they're some, photo enhanced, lovely people who to take this sort of route of I can't go wrong, and the spokesperson will say it, and have other people write your scripts and never go off script. I have make a few notes to myself, but I try to sort of speak spontaneously, and I think you like people that speak spontaneously. Mess it up. More interesting to watch too, isn't it? But politicians are not like this, are they? We've got professional politicians, and professional politicians are fake. It's like Chairman Mao said about them. Ha! All paper tigers. And yeah, it's like a load of paper tigers, isn't it? So we're very sick and tired of this polished facade, aren't we? This goody goodies. Joe Biden, I'm a goody goody. Rishi Sunak here in the UK, I'm a goody goody. Macron, another one, I'm a goody goody, I'll never go wrong. Or in Canada, I never go wrong. I mean, it's oh dear. And we look at it all, and we're all saying, and here we are in a position in the world at the moment where people like Trump and others and me and lots of you are talking about, are we on the brink of World War III? We're seeing an exceptionally dangerous world out there, and we're being given a load of PR nonsense, and we're seeing in our politics, disagree with me, please, but we're seeing our politics sort of socialist lunacy. Really, we're seeing liberalism gone bonkers. We're seeing the world trying to be run by guardian readers, but in reality, I think the general public, I think ordinary people, are very different. And this is why, the liberals and the very far left, or whatever we want to call them, the wokies, I call them, um, they're completely puzzled. They can't understand why so many of us kind of quite like Trump and people like Farage as well. Um, I like them. I've got to say, I do like them. I hope my predictions don't get too distracted by the fact that I like these people. But the reason why ordinary people like which a lot of the lefties would call this is real far right stuff, is because just like I've said, they make mistakes and they're prepared to speak on the cuff, and they make a mistake and we see them trip up, and we see them make huge mistakes sometimes, and it makes you think, well, at least they're speaking real, and I'm not saying they're good people. I mean, just like everybody else, they've got a lot of flaws. I mean, you could hardly say Trump is whiter than white, could you? I mean, he's full of blemishes. He's done lots in his life that I'm sure is, not right. There's loads. I mean, there's tons. But whether this is something that he should be drawn through the courts for is another question, really, because it seems to ordinary people, I think, and I'm sure the American people must think this, that there's a stitch up going on. I mean, we're seeing stitch ups here in the UK too. I mean, our politics, we've had a number of prime ministers, one after another, that none of us have voted for. You vote for one guy and you get a load of others. They voted in Boris Johnson, and you get everybody else clambering for position, and nobody out. And actually, the very thing everybody voted for has gone completely out the window, hasn't it? So I'm seeing ahead, and I've said this before, but anyway, but it's happening now, and I suppose it's fairly self-evident. But I'm seeing ahead a global movement towards what people would call the far right, and what a lot of people would call, actually, it's the middle ground. Because we're not talking about Gus stepping through Poland and France, are we? We're talking about people wanting, I think, common sense back. And you see, I don't know how you feel, guys, and perhaps you make some comments about some of these things as we go on, but haven't our Western institutions all been taken over? I mean, you look at things like the BBC here in the UK, and you feel that it's been taken over by political agendas. You look at our corporate brands, and they're pumping political, social agendas. They're pushing ideas upon us that we might not be so keen about diversity. We might be more interested in unity, or better still, something in between, where we actually find unity in diversity, where we consider also our commonality of all of us as peoples. Whether we be in Europe, whether we be in whatever country of the world, I think we have to have a sense of unity, that we are this sort of people. It's good to feel like that. Doesn't mean we want to go and invade other countries or throw bombs at people or persecute other people. It just means that's kind of something we're proud of, isn't it? But our institutions, in a sport, look at Gary Lineker. What sort of guy is that? What horrible arrogance do we see pumped out from there? And BBC never sack him, do they? They don't sack him. They'll sack anybody else that might speak out in the slightest against what the BBC have as their hidden agenda. And education completely gone down the pan. I mean, I know that I can't name anything here, but somebody I was talking to, a young lady was talking to from school, was telling me that they're not allowed to use certain pronouns that on the teacher. The teacher is gender neutral pronouns. A teacher with gender neutral pronouns. To me, that's politics, and to me, that's dangerous. And even the sort of way religion's gone has been still pumped with this sort of hidden politics. We worry in our countries in Europe about Islam, and we're not allowed to mention that. It's supposed to be either racist or hatred or something like that. It's not. We worry about the incompatibility of things like Islam, don't we? We worry that again, we're having agendas pushed upon us that we're not used to, which are not been in our countries for the thousands of years of the development of our countries. These are new ideas, and many of these ideas are completely incompatible. with what we see. This, you see, I see, sometimes religion can become politics. And we've seen it happen through the history of Europe. We've seen it where Catholicism became a political force and stopped the progress of Europe for a long time. I think, it wasn't until we broke through from that and that we started to get more freedom of speech. Science couldn't progress, could it? Galileo couldn't do his thing because of the political ideas of religion, and we see it again now happening in modern days. This is something that is frightening, I think, for people, you know. And so we're getting a world where we have such powerful people on the, we're all divided. We're all worried about our world. We dare not speak out. We dare not say anything, and yet we see great powerful people like Xi Jinping. He's no mug, is he? He knows what he's doing. But it's not just him. All the other people behind him. There's a whole army of faceless politicians that we never know about. We never hear about in our news, do we? We never hear it in the mainstream news at all about what's going on in the background there. Do you know anyone other than Xi Jinping as a politician in China? I'm not politically trained, but I have no idea. I know, who are all these people? These are the people determining the world, and similarly, what's going on in Russia with Putin. These are strong people with nuclear weapons and with the very latest sort of technology, such as drones, which we're seeing, which surprisingly, a simple drone could knock out a battleship, and they're cheap. So we're not armed. We are we not, on a brink of a dangerous situation? When I said at the beginning, and talked about Trump's thoughts about, we're on the brink of World War III. You see, what's happening is we're getting a swing. We've had this idea of division between, I suppose, what you could call conservative and the left. It's a little bit more muddy than that, I think. We'd all probably agree. But the thing is, we're getting this situation, aren't we, where we feel that our voices have not been heard. We're having ideology forced upon us. We seem to be miles away from everyday politics. And we have all this damaging identity politics going on, and this idea that you can't argue with someone if you give facts and things, and if that happens to be their opinion, that's what they identify with. You can't argue against that because that's what they've decided they are, and anything we say against what they believe is a bullying of some sort. Daft. We're not allowed to have debates, are we? And I think there's a rise in the world now against this type of liberal elites. It's elitism in a way, isn't it? We're seeing it in our newscasters. We're seeing it in our, traditional media often. We're seeing it in agendas that are being forced upon ordinary people. And the ordinary people are having a think about this. We're thinking about it. And we're seeing, and like I said at the start, people are puzzled why people like Donald Trump can be so hugely popular. Even though you try to put him in jail and you throw one criminal proceeding after another at him, and they say, look, he's a crook, he's a crook, he's a crook. And people are saying, he might be. He might have his flaws. He might be full of faults. But we're talking about, we want real people. We don't want paper cutout politicians. We don't want career politicians. We want real people. It's happening all around the world. So what I'm seeing ahead is a bigger and bigger swing towards the right. Now, whether that's good or bad, we've got to decide. And I hopefully what we'll end up with is some middle ground that's neither too far right or too far left. But the swing has gone so far, we cannot find our unity. We've been so concerned with this diversity, which has been hijacked. It's an idea that has good beginnings and good thoughts, but it's been hijacked. Look what's happening in Argentina, for example. What's his name? Javier Milei, isn't it? Javier Milei. A guy that's really on the right, a guy that believes in tantric sex, a guy that has all sorts of interesting ideas. He believes his dead dog communicates with him. And he says he's had his dog cloned. I should be all for someone who's getting spirit communications, but but it shows how desperate people are. I think the did I read somewhere? I think it was in Argentina is at 110% inflation, the same as bad as what happened in Germany just before the Second World War. You got to vote for someone real. Someone you can't vote for someone that's been massaging the figures and say we're going to do this and then do the complete opposite. We're going to have a Rwanda policy here in the UK and then nothing happens. You've got to have people that at least try to deliver the goods. So we're going to see a much more of a swing in 2024. It's going to be a very, very important year for world politics. Geert Wilders, isn't it, in Netherlands as well? He's speaking out. Quite an extreme voice. He's not actually fully in power there, but the very fact that he can get so close to power is should make people think. And his ideas, he's saying, the ordinary people of Holland don't want Islam. And I've walked through something about 2 years ago, I suppose, possibly 3 years ago now, we went to Amsterdam again, and it was not the place I recognized. I lived in Amsterdam for a year, and I used to love the place, and I used to love the little Dutch shops that used to be able to go round where there were people selling cheeses in traditional dress. That's going back some while now. You just look at the lines on my face, you can tell how long ago it was. But it was it was a different world, and now it's all corporate stores, and they can't. I couldn't see any Dutch people, not what I call traditional Dutch people. So you can see why people are beginning to sort of say, look, our nations have changed beyond recognition. London has changed beyond recognition. Giorgia Meloni, isn't it, in Italy? She's was seen as, if she gets into power, we've had it. This is so anti-Europe. And she's keeping the lid on things a lot. She's not gone extreme with what she says because she don't want to lose the funding from Europe. Otherwise, Italy's going to be down the pan economically. But people like that are beginning to see actually they manage things quite well and they speak very well. And she's become probably one of the most popular politicians in Europe at the moment. So we feel threatened. We feel intimidated in our own country, don't we? And that's same in America, same in you name what country you're in, and I bet you feel intimidated. I bet if you come from Sweden, you feel intimidated in your own country sometimes. We see marches on the streets pro-Palestine, which frankly, is that the common person's view of what is going on in the Middle East? My feeling is in Israel, in that whole conflict, Israel will prevail. In the end, Israel will prevail, and it will be a very difficult thing because I think as we move forward and as things go more right, and this is when it starts to get dangerous, we may see immigration being challenged and even targeted. May not be directly, but I think we will start to see a swing with things like that. And I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm not preaching that we should do this. I'm just trying to get a feeling about where the world's going. And if we don't go over the edge with this and go too far in the extreme, I mean, there's been a right wing shift, hasn't there? You think about it. Hungary's gone right. Italy's gone right as well. I've mentioned that. Finland's gone is moved to the right, and so has Sweden and even Greece. People are getting very tired. Or I feel that the whole thing is happening, and it's not coming from big extremist people talking about this. It's not extremist people, but there is being a kind of a move in the politics of the world, I think, towards ordinary people feeling they've had enough, and we haven't really got people we can vote for. This is becoming the danger. Here in the UK, we've got a choice between a Labour and Conservative party, which are both broken up, really, both damaged parties, and both without any clear concept and idea, And I'm sure the same thing is happening everywhere because, frankly, we get in such a division now. Same thing's happening everywhere. I see people coming in from China here, for example, in the chat and things like that. And this, everybody feels they haven't got a voice. The people of Hong Kong, what's happened to their voice? They feel like they've all had their tongues cut out. China, for example, is held by a big dictatorship. These are things we need to challenge. This is where things have really got out the way, where communism, for example, wouldn't it be better if China was like Taiwan, that China was Hong Kong, China was, broken into smaller, manageable countries? Shanghai, make its own country. I think it would do better. Anyway, I'm going on and on and on here, but these are my thoughts. I think the world is going in a very strange sort of way. We've seen, America changing its tact now. We've seen Biden, for example, trailing in the polls everywhere, even places like Nevada, Michigan, Pennsylvania. All the places that pushed him into power are falling away. Now, I predicted that I feel that Trump will become the next president of the USA. And I've said this before. And first time round, I said he'd be voted in. Second time round, I got it wrong. I said he will win the vote. He perhaps did win the vote, in my opinion. But we are we not, closest to the most dangerous, perhaps, political and world politics time that we've ever been? And is this not because of some, I think, deluded agendas that have taken over, and political undermining of our world by people like, the liberals, the Trudeaus of this world? I mean, we do need to rethink. And I think the way it's going to be rethought is that there's going to be a lot of elections in 2024. And you mark my words, it's going to, whoops, lost my camera for a minute, but you mark my words, it's going to change. It's going to be a shift. There's going to be a shift very much to the right. And on one level, I think it's a good thing, but on another level, it's also a bit dangerous as well, because these are such similar conditions to what we had in the 1930s. Anyway, thank you for joining me. I'll take a few of your comments. It's not so much questions, I think more comments. Oh, that's nice of you. You give me a nice little payment. Thank you. Someone pays the piper. You could ask me a question. I heard Iraq, as of the 1st of January, stop using the US dollar, and other countries are doing the same. Will this affect the US dollar value? I think I ought, Carol, really to do that type of question a little bit as a separate thing on the economic way ahead for the world. I think that's something I have to reserve for that, actually. It's not something I want to talk at the moment, but we're going to see, we're going to see political change. It makes common sense that we're going to see a very volatile world of the whole money markets in the future, and with all of it, Davos as well, all these things. But I will do something separate on that lot, guys, I think. What are you saying here? Trump won. Trump lost 2022, 7 million votes. Who of them will vote for a traitor? So good to see we've got mixed opinions on this. What do you think, guys? Was it, I think that the majority of people's, it's very hard. Politicians would love to know, what do the majority think? Because the polls and everything like that is always massively wrong, isn't it? But I think there's a common feeling at the moment. There's an awful lot of discontent among people, and then there's others here. I can see you've got all sorts, I get a lot of Trump followers as well. Unfortunately, we're all at the moment, it's so divisive, isn't it? I see you asking about lots and lots of stuff here, but I think I'm going to have to keep it comparatively simple today, because I just wanted to seed that thought. I'm going to do some more. I'll have to do one about the economy, won't I? I can do that. Do put in your comments also, what would you like me to actually start thinking about a little bit more? I thought I might do one on the future of art too. That's something that intrigues me, or what's going to happen in the future with that, because I was an artist for so long. I've done quite a lot about woke, so the sort of questions you'd like me to address, anything you Russia, I mean, Russia wouldn't have invaded, would it, if Clinton hadn't told the Ukrainians to get rid of all the nuclear weapons. This is what happens when you have weak countries. Weak countries are always going to get stamped on by the stronger, You know, you say, as you sow, so you reap. But, you know, sometimes as you sow, and someone else steals it from you. That's the way of the world. But I'll do a separate one on Ukraine, you know, and if there's any other questions, things you want me to do in future videos, do let me know. So you're asking loads and loads of questions there, all on completely disparate things. But okay, I think I'm going to finish soon. I'd just like to say thanks for joining me, guys, here again today. I'm doing a number of workshops online as well. I've got to make my living as well, guys. So have a look on my website at psychics.co.uk. You can see up in the corner of the screen there. We did some workshops the other day, meditation workshops, because, you know, we worry about the world out there, and we all think, how can we change it? And, you know, we've had so many movements in the world, haven't we? Political movements and spiritual movements, and it's still bad news, isn't it? We've had, you know, all sorts of great people come into the world to try to sort it out. People with utopian ideas, people with philosophical ideas, people with political methods, people with spiritual methods, and it's still the same old problem world. You'd thought we'd have sorted it by now. But the only way we can really sort it is by sorting ourselves. You know, we have to go through this world almost slightly transcendentally. We have to walk through this world without being affected by it. We have to become spiritually unsullied. We have to become people that can withstand the world. We have to be part of the world, but also not part of the world. So we have to have our head in the forest, as it were. That's when in the spiritual world, in the realm of development and spiritual development. But at the same time, we have to have our hands in society. This is what Sai Baba said. And if we can do that, then we're safe. We can go through the world happily, and we can also have a better effect on the world if we spiritually develop. And this is why one of the reasons, there comes the sale, you might enjoy my workshops, which are online at the moment. So go and have a look at those and see how you get on. You might find that useful. I can have a chat with you directly then, guys. Okay, see you soon then. Bye for now. So would you like to know more? Come and see my website at psychics.co.uk, where you can buy my books. You can also read lots of free articles, and you can join our Patreon community if you like there. You can also book readings with myself and Jane. I do readings by Zoom and by email. Jane does them one-to-one at home. So have a look on the website, you'll find all that. And you'll also find our team of readers who do international work. So you can book a psychic, a medium, an astrologer there, and they're available now for phone readings 24/7. So visit our website, psychics.co.uk. You'll find a link in the description below.